Hello. Hi. We have a very low-key, no makeup video today. I'm wearing my Kelly Williams Tiny Hot Topic, but here, I'll stand up. Wearing my came in today. Beautiful. Love it. Today I'm talking about Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo, particularly comparing them to each other. Now, before I even get into it, I am aware I'm breaking one of my own rules. So one of my own rules is that I wait for things to happen before I comment on them, and Olivia Rodrigo has an album coming out next week. And so it would be weird for me to compare debut albums when one isn't even out yet. And then the other thing too is that Billie Eilish is in a new era right now, which I'll talk about a little later. So it's I'm talking about this stuff before it happens, and I'm aware I'm doing that, but I don't have anything else to talk about today, and next week is Butter Week, so the next week's video is going to be about BTS and Butter and some hype stuff. I have some complaints. Which is fine. My last hype video, I was like hyping them up a lot, so it's time for me to be like, but actually they're not that great. But today, Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo. So this video, mostly an exercise in exploring my personal taste instead of any actual like objective analysis of what's going on. Again, because the Olivia's album hasn't come out, so I can't say how it compares up to Billie's debut album. I'm just going to start on how I came to this topic, and then we'll actually start with it. So I really like Olivia Rodrigo's new song, Good For You. I enjoy it better than Driver's License and Deja Vu. I will say that I liked Deja Vu more than I like Driver's License. I see the vision. When Driver's License came out, a lot of people were like, oh my god, like she's the next big thing. And I was like, I don't know, I don't see it. But like now, like Good For You, I'm like, yes, yep, she is the next big thing. I definitely see it. And it wasn't that like Driver's License is a bad song or whatever. It was just not for me. And she's a teenager. She's very much a teenager. And it's not that Good For You is that she's not a teenager. It just shows a different side of being a teenage girl. And that's what I like about Olivia Rodrigo. She is just unapologetically just a teenage girl. She's a teenager. She's, what is she, 17, 18? She's 18 now, but she was 17 when Driver's License came out. She's an 18-year-old with a broken heart and a lot of melodrama to add to it, and it's just refreshing. I really enjoy it. From listening to that, I was thinking about how, like, you know, like, the U.S. has a lot, or particularly Hollywood and America's, like, entertainment industry does produce a lot of teenage girl idols, and there's a very, very long line of these teenage girls that we put on a pedestal and idolize, and sometimes it goes very bad. As far as I can tell, this goes back to at least Judy Garland. You could probably count every year or 3 years or whatever a new teenage girl that the Americans decided was the big star of the year and pushed up to the top. It's just, you know, the teenage girls idols have always had bad endings up until Britney Spears, who had a bad ending too. There's a lot of big names that started out very young. I would say the next one after Britney was Beyonce, and she's, you know, a billionaire now, so there's that. The point is that there's a long line, and this is a phenomenon that I want to explore more, like way, way more, especially as somebody who used to be a teenage girl. But that's not the point of this video. I'm just focusing on two specific teenagers. One is Billie Eilish, and one is Olivia. Olivia Rodrigo is our most recent one, and Billie Eilish is our last one. It also doesn't usually happen this fast, close together. I feel like Billie's still, like, she's still also the teenage pop star. It's just now we just have one on top with Olivia Rodrigo. The other thing too, I didn't put this in my notes, that I just want to talk about this real quick. I'm not going to debate or talk about the ethics or morals of having stars like this be this young and be this public as young as they are. Because Judy Garland was 16 when she was in Wizard of Oz, right? And Olivia Rodrigo was 17 when her song got big. Billie Eilish was 17 when her song got big. So, like there are certain implications about being as big as they are as when they're, you know, 17 or whatever. And that's just not the topic of this video. That's certainly something we can talk about and think about. I think it's a very complicated answer, a very, very complicated thing, because I don't want to sit down and say, like, if you're going to be strictly scientific about it, then nobody should be famous below the age of 25 at all. Period. That's what we know of when the brain stops developing. As far as we know, research could turn up and it could be different. But as of right now, what we know is the brain stops developing at 25. So why would you throw somebody to the stress and weirdness of public life before then? But I do that, and suddenly I'm taking away idols and role models for other teenagers to look up to. And I don't necessarily want to do that either. So we're really just focusing on Olivia Rodrigo and Billie Eilish, and we're just kind of talking about the two of them and how they compare against one another, right? I'm not going to say one is better than the other. That's also not happening in this video. I'm just talking about it's because it happened so closely. It's because Billie's happened in 2019 and Olivia's happened in 2021, which is 2 years apart. Like, I just want to, because they just happened so close together. So as far as Billie Eilish go, I'm mostly going to talk about her first era and her first stuff from her first album, Where Did We Go When We All Fell Asleep, but not extensively. I'm mostly going to be talking about Bad Guy. Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo are close in age. Billie was born in 2001 and Olivia was born in 2003. Billie Eilish was 17 when Bad Guy hit big. Olivia Rodrigo was 17, turning 18 when Driver's License got big. So there are similarities there. And I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy Bad Guy or Driver's License, but I do enjoy Billie's newer stuff, particularly Everything I Wanted and Therefore I Am. My Power is good, but it's not something that I want to, like, listen to or, like, I put on my playlist to listen to constantly. And I enjoy Deja Vu and Good For You better than I like Driver's License. So apparently I just don't like the first big hit from these girls. And if I compare my interest levels as to how interested I was in Billie's first album versus how interested I'm into Olivia Rodrigo's first stuff, I'm way more interested in Olivia Rodrigo than Billie Eilish's debut album. If they were coming out at the same time, I would be way more interested in this one than in Olivia's than Billie's. And I think first of all, it's weird for me because the type of person I am, like, I'm wearing a shirt that says Tiny Hot Topic Bitch, right? I have listened to emo. I have done my rounds. I have listened to emo. I grew up listening to, like, Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco. Like, my teenage years was all of that. And then, like, Chiodos and Craig Owens and, like, all of these, like, dark, like, emo boys, right? So theoretically, I should be very into Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish should be the thing that I'm into, but I'm just not. I just wasn't. And I'm much more drawn to Olivia Rodrigo. I think that all comes down to two reasons, mostly, right? One is about the actual music that they put out, and two is about the entire aesthetic that they present, music and all. Music-wise, Billie Eilish is considered anti-pop. I know when I was researching this, it seemed that she didn't necessarily like that label, but, like, that's the music that she made. It's not anti-pop as in, like, she hates pop music. It's anti-pop in that it subverts a lot of pop tropes. So she has overly dark or cynical lyrics. It's dramatic, but not overtly dramatic in a way that a Spears song might be, in a way Mariah Carey song might be. She has the mumbling and the softer voice, so she doesn't have this bombastic voice or voice that, like, even like Olivia has. She doesn't have what I like to call the classic pop voice. And then Billie has typically has non-traditional song structures. So think about the outro to Bad Guy, right? Or even, like, a song like Everything I Wanted. Like, she's not just verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. You know, it's a different kind of structure, and she picks different interpretations, and all that subverts a lot of pop tropes. And so that's what makes her anti-pop. She's making pop music that is radically different from what you would typically know. Olivia Rodrigo, just pop. A pop star with the 2020 genre hopping thing that we're doing now. And she's also very heavily influenced by Taylor Swift and Lorde, and Jack Antonoff. Again, Olivia Rodrigo's second album is going to be produced by Jack Antonoff. I'm telling you that right now. Jack's probably already on the phone. Just to note, like, Taylor Swift and Lorde are both two teenage pop stars that are in this lineage that I was talking about before. So just keep note that, like, I'm like, it's deep. It's a deep conspiracy. It goes deep. And, like, even just considering that and considering what Billie's influences are versus what Olivia's influences are, I was never a Taylor Swift fan. I've only very recently been beginning to be like, all right, like, Taylor's okay, right? But, like, I have never been necessarily a fan of Taylor. Even, like, I'm opening myself up here, but even listening to the Fearless re-records, I thought that maybe I would like it better because, like, Taylor Swift is older now, right? Her voice has matured. She's not a 15-year-old girl anymore, so maybe it would sound nicer, but I still did not enjoy it. Maybe it's just I'll still listen to her other re-records, but, like, I'm just not, it's just not for me. Sorry, Swifties. So on paper, I should like Billie more than I like Olivia Rodrigo, but right now, I'm making this seem more dramatic than it is. It's really, like, if I had to rate them both on would I listen to this from, like, 1 to 10, right? 1 being, like, I would never put this on in my life. Like, I would never voluntarily put this song on ever. And 10 being, like, I listen to it 24/7 all the time. I will never stop listening to this song. They're both at, like, a 5. Like, I'm making this seem more dramatic than it is. It's not, but it's this weird thing in me where I should probably like Billie more than I do. And I like Olivia Rodrigo more than I should. When I think about it on paper and I go a little deeper, then, like, okay, like, you know what? Like, if I look at Olivia's music, her musical influences are not necessarily artists that I typically enjoy. I think it comes down then to the overall aesthetics of the artist. So not just their music, but how they're presenting their music, how they're presenting themselves, and what kind of the, like, vibe is. Because every artist, let's just go on a tangent, right? Every artist, including, like, your, like, Tame Impala or, like, Drake or, like, Kendrick Lamar, right? There are ancillary things to the music that matter as much about the music too. It's about presenting the music, the type of format the music comes in. What are you wearing? What's your music video look like? You know, what does your album and single cover art look like, right? It's much more obvious with groups like BTS or K-pop groups where the concept is very much a part of the whole thing and sometimes even more important than the song, depending on the group. Not BTS though. But, like, depends, right? And it's very obvious when an artist doesn't really put a whole lot of thought into how they're presenting their music. Another two that are really good at presenting themselves like that, and not just their music, but themselves, their image, what they're wearing, how they act online. Doja and Lil Nas X, Megan Thee Stallion is also really good at this, right? So it matters. The ancillary art stuff that's not necessarily auditory music matters. To how I and how everyone else receives the song, right? Especially when you're doing performances and stuff, it matters how you present it. The frills and fluffies around it matter. So let's talk about the frills and fluffies around these two girls. With Olivia Rodrigo, her concept is that she's just a teenage girl who sings about teenage girl problems, who dresses and acts like a teenage girl with all of the drama and angst that comes with it. And I'll be honest, she's really the first, including Billie, and Taylor Swift. I'll get to that in a second. Olivia Rodrigo is the first teenage pop star to really just kind of be a teenage girl. The other ones that came before her did not have this chance to just be a teenage girl. And I think that's what really resonates with me because I did not see that. I have not seen that very much. Every other teenage girl pop star has had this curated image about her that strips away the messiness of being a teenager. Meanwhile, Olivia is embracing these angsty, messy emotions. And I really appreciate that. I say including Taylor Swift, and that Taylor Swift hasn't necessarily embraced the mess of being a teenager because of where she started in country, everyone was very, very concerned at making sure that she did not get canceled or ruined by country music fans. So she had to be very quiet about her political beliefs. She was told to stay away from it. And that is cleaning her image. That's controlling her image by people around her. And then also, like, like, Taylor doesn't own her catalog either, right? Scooter Braun does. And now, actually, funny story. Scooter sold it to Disney, to a I think it's a hedge fund owned by the Walt Disney's family. So don't quote me on all that. You can look, this is all common knowledge. You can look up who owns Taylor's Masters right now. But even then, like that, like, Taylor does not control the image of her prior music. That's why she's re-recording it. And I'll get to like Olivia doesn't either. Like, Olivia does not control her image either. But it's refreshing to see the teenage girlness of it, right? Okay, Billie's image, however, right, Billie Eilish, she subverted a lot of the typical teen pop star tropes, right? And I think that was both intended and not intended, because a lot of Billie Eilish's core is that she's just a girl making music with her brother. Like, that's the core of it, right? And that's fine. And then she presents it to the world in the way that she wants, right? So whatever, like, aesthetic is floating her boat. And I know, listen, I don't even have to be a teenage girl to tell you that I change my mind every 5 seconds. God knows when I was 17, it was faster. So I understand Billie. I get it. But upon execution, it's like Billie is the white conservatives' nightmare of what a liberated teenage girl is. Like, that's what it was. So both Billie just being a girl making music with her brother and then doing whatever she wants, and Billie being the conservative nightmare of a liberated teenage girl, are both subversions of the teen pop star thing, because usually teen pop stars are controlled to preserve their image of purity. Here we go. We're bringing some, because they all have this pure image to them, but the other people in her life. So Billie not being that and being able to explore herself in her music and not necessarily have clean pop music is really good. However, it's not like Billie and Olivia aren't free from influence and are truly like these free, like, they do whatever they want whenever they want people, right? So they both have a primarily male producer that they primarily work with. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm getting there. For Billie, like, to come back to the purity thing about how a lot of it is about protecting this image of purity. For Billie, what is more pure than making music with your older brother and playing around with your older brother? Like, there have been musical families for years in the US. This is a thing, right? And that core is still like a purity core, like protecting the purity of Billie. Because, oh, well, she's with her older brother, so it's fine, And Olivia, again, with Olivia, what's more pure than Disney? She's on a Disney show. She's not signed to Hollywood Records, so she doesn't have a Disney recording contract, but she does work on High School Musical, and which is a Disney property. So she's definitely Disney. And when we look at the two of them, right, when we look at this core of Billie, it's okay for Billie to do crazy things. Like, because, like, society didn't immediately call Billie Eilish a Satan worshiper because, oh, well, she's doing music with her brother. And Olivia Rodrigo isn't immediately called, like, the crazy ex because, oh, she's Disney. And also because she got ahead of the narrative and created the narrative. But that's a different story. When we take that into account and we start to think of purity, I think we can start to see this obsession with the purity of girlhood and its future corruption, right? And I think as I continue to intellectually explore this long line of teenage pop stars that the US has had, we will see in every single case that there is this obsession of keeping them pure, and then an obsession with corrupting them. And I will say, I didn't write this in my notes, the purity of teenage girls, particularly only pertains to white girls. I mentioned Beyonce before as one of those teenage pop stars, and she was very young when Destiny Child got big, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say that she's not one of them, but I don't think people were necessarily as concerned with preserving Beyonce's purity than others. It gets more complicated when you add in the race stuff, but that's not this video. This video, we're talking about Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo. But the purity and corruption thing, right? This is why Billie Eilish's Vogue cover was an issue. Right? And when that came out, I was like, why? What? It was a big deal because when everyone saw that suddenly she was doing a pinup thing, right? That was a little bit more, you know, adult than what she usually does. It wasn't even that. She wasn't even showing like a crazy amount of skin. It was very tasteful. It was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous photo shoot, but everyone was like, oh my God, it was she growing up now? Why is she doing this? Oh my God, they were all shocked that Billie Eilish, who used to dress in these really baggy clothes to hide her body because she did not want the attention that she knew her body type would get her. Everyone was like shocked that she would do this and were very worried that she was doing this, right? Like, and it really feels like anyone who was actually upset didn't read the article where it said that she chose this. Billie Eilish said that she wanted to do a pinup. She wanted to change her look and presentation and concept for her next album era. So she kicks it off with this gorgeous blonde hair and with this gorgeous pinup series that's really elegant and really beautiful. And like, I even saw this TikTok that was like, oh my God, did society force Billie to do this? Did she feel like she had to do this? And like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe society forces women to do things every day, constantly, all the time. I know it forces me to do things I don't want to do. But like, I, for one, would like to live in a society that supports women in whatever fashion choices and any choice that they make. So if Billie Eilish chose to do a pinup photo shoot for Vogue in a very tasteful and wonderful way, then I support her and she looks good doing it. As long as she feels good, as long as she's comfortable and feels good, that's fine. And for all that I have seen about it is that she felt comfortable and felt good during that photo shoot. It's that, like, there's no need to complicate it about, did she feel like she had to do this? I mean, maybe she felt like she needed to change up her look for her next album era, but it did not necessarily have to be like that. I'm to understand that, like, that photo shoot was very much like she wanted to do something like that. She wanted to do something classic and beautiful like that. So let her. It's okay to be girly, guys. It's fine to be girly and traditionally, like, spoilers. I feel like we've gone too far. It's okay to be traditionally feminine. There's no problem with that. The problem is when you start forcing it onto other people and wondering, like, well, why did you choose this? Like, let her live. Olivia as the next in this long line of teenagers that we're obsessed with. Her pure, just like teenage girl, like in her room, like complaining about the boy who broke her heart is really refreshing. I think the true endpoint of this, like the true, like freedom of being a girl and girlhood will be when we drop this purity thing and pressure to be pure and good and just let girls be girls. I also think that we should have a teenage pop star produced and managed but entirely by a team of women, because we have not had that yet, and that would be a very different experience than what we've experienced so far. I think if we can get all that, we will be on our way. I will talk to you guys next week for Butter. It'll be Butter release day. That video will be, I spoke a little bit about the beginning, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking about for that video. I will be addressing some Hybe things because I'm a little unhappy with the way they have planned these comebacks. Everyone under the sun in Hybe is just coming back in summer. And it's like, okay, yeah, so you think all of your groups are going to have a summer hit? Every single one? Okay. All right, Hybe. And then I'm going to talk about, obviously, the music video, the teaser photos, the lead up. I'll talk about McDonald's and Louis Vuitton. Same week. I will talk about, I'm not going to talk about any of the variety stuff they've been doing. I will save that for later. I'll talk about the music video. I'll talk about the Billboard Music Awards performance, and I'll talk about the Rolling Stone feature. The only reason I didn't talk about Rolling Stone this week is because they're still releasing the interviews. And we have 4 left to go. As of the filming of this, it'll be 3 left by the time you guys see this video on Monday. So, I'll address all of it then, and then it'll all be done and tidied up, and then we can wait till next month to do another Hyde video. Maybe, unless if I decide to do it. Unless if TXTs come back to something like crazy. And I mean like crazy, like suddenly they get like a super high jump up on the US charts. Then I'll make a TXT video. But we'll see. We'll see. Alright, thank you for watching. Socials in the description. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, you know, all that fun stuff. I will see you next week.